Hello everyone and welcome back to scripting. Today we will start on Python, and I'll have my Python code along here. We'll run through that really quickly. Okay, first of all, there is the official reference site. We'll take a quick look at that. See if it's opening up. This is interesting. We'll get to it a little later. Okay, here we go. Takes a little while. Python was written by a Dutchman. It's written by Guido van Rossum. Here's the official site for it. Now what's really interesting is, although you have these kind of snakes suggesting Python is a snake, it originally was not considered a name for a snake. It was named for Monty Python's Flying Circus. Anyway, so jumping back. Okay, and Guido released it in 1891, and it was named after Monty Python's Flying Circus, just like I said. The philosophy is there should be one, and preferably only one, obvious way to do it. And here you have the Zen of Python if you want to understand his reasoning. I think he was almost kind of objecting to the scripting languages of the days, which got where they were a beautiful mess. They would work, but they were very complicated. Okay, programming aids, there is an interpreter available. You can execute items line by line just like you can in Bash or DOS. And there is a IDE available. I'll pull it up here right quick. Let's see if it's in my recents. Yes. This is what the IDE looks like. If you want to type things in one at a time, you can. Okay, you notice that I had to put things into parentheses, that everything has to be in parentheses. There's no dollar signs or anything involved here. Very, very basic. Now, if you want to run a file here, you have to run the file, then you have to type the file, you have to save it and all that. I'm not using idle because I want to go back and forth. I want to run a section at a time. Okay, the other thing you have is you don't have any directives like you have with Perl, like set strict on or set warning on. The reason for that is Perl is a compiled language, so you have a compiler directive. It doesn't make any sense to do a compiler directive for Python because Python's an interpreted language. It executes things one at a time. Okay, try except finally structure. I mentioned that before. I don't think I really dove into exactly what that is, so I'll give you a quick look. Okay, that doesn't look too much. Let's go down here. Basically what happens to try is, a try is when you try something, and if it has a problem, you raise an error, and then it goes down and it catches the error and does stuff. And common time you do a try statement is if you're doing a file access or something that you're doing with the operating system or with remote computers where it just simply may not work, and you won't be able to recover from that. Okay, getting started. Your pound sign is your single comment. You see these triple single quotes, those are multi-line comments, and you can see that I've used those in here to kind of mark off my code as I run it. Okay, let's see what I'm trying. Run in interpreter mode for demo. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say print hello world. Actually, I'm going to copy these over. I won't run this in the interpreter mode. I'll run it in the program mode, but we'll still be okay. Okay. Alright, I will run this. run it, since I have a shebang there. Actually, let me change that shebang. That's the cheap, easy one. This is the better one. This is the one we use now. The reason that is then it's easy to go back, and when Python 4 comes back, you just change it to Python 4. Alright. Okay. Bury too far back. What I want to do is want to execute. Okay, and it says hello world. Alright, I'm going to uncomment this. This used to work in Python 2. It does not work anymore. And so if you start digging things out of Stack Overflow and all that, make sure you have it for the right version of Python. Okay, it says, did you mean print in parentheses? Yes, I did, but I'm not going to bother doing that because we're pretty much done with this. Run it once to verify that that was the problem. Yep. So that's how you print things out to the console. Okay, now I said note the syntax of assign a variable. Notice I don't have a $sign there or anything like that. Now input is a function. It's an input function from the keyboard. Alright. Save. Go ahead and run it. Okay, and notice this is how you substitute a variable in for a string. Kind of handy. Okay, here if you're in interpreted mode, you have to do exit to get out of it. Don't have to worry about that with what we're doing. Okay, going to talk about declaring variables, and what I have here is I have the answer is 42. Talking about borrowing a note from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And what will happen is this is 42 as a number because it doesn't have any quotation marks about it. This type gives you the type of this gives you the actual ID of that address location, and this will add two of them together, and we'll just see what we get here. Alright, save it, run it. Okay, let's back up a little ways here. Okay, it printed it out. It printed out 42. It says the class was integer. And this is the ID, which means as much to me as it does you. And it added 42 and 42 together and got 84, so it treated it as an integer. Now, in contrast, look what happens here. Okay, notice that I define it with quotations, so this is a string. So it should print 42 here. Here it should print out the type for 42. And here it should put what happens if you add two of them together. Okay, and we'll jump down here. We'll jump down here. We'll run it. Okay, and notice when it printed it out as a 42, but notice it printed out as a string, and notice that when you add two of them together, it concatenates them. This is the idea of duck typing, that if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck, and it'll treat it as a duck. From the way that we defined it, it inferred that it was a string. I didn't actually say that it was a string variable, but it says, oh, that must be a string, so it treated it as a string. That's called duck typing, and it comes from the term, if it quacks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it's a duck. Alright, we'll talk about booleans, and we'll run this. I'm just going to run it as is. Okay, print true. It says true, and it says it's a class Boolean. This isn't a text string. It treated it as a Boolean. Didn't treat it as an integer. Same thing as false, and it's a Boolean. Now, if you get in a hurry, keep in mind that Python is case sensitive, as is most languages these days. You get in language, and notice that it executes everything up to that point, and then it gives you a trace back on this, and then it doesn't go any further. This is an interpret languages. It doesn't go through and check everything and then convert it to machine language and run it. It runs it one at a time in an interpreter. That's why it hit this problem, and you notice that it's trying to warn you that there's a problem here. And the problem is you forgot to capitalize it, or I forgot to capitalize it. Okay, enough. Let me fix it. Okay, that fixes it. And we're back where we're at. Okay, so much for Booleans. Okay, you have your logical operations. Okay, here what I'm doing is I'm saying true, and I'm casting it to a string. I'm casting it to a string so that I can print this out and say, give you what the logical operation was and what the result of it is. Okay. Okay, let's head back over here. Okay, we got a double of returns here, so true and true is true. True and false is false, as it should be. True or true is true. True or false is true. This is basic Boolean algebra 101. Okay. You have the ternary operator that acts as an immediate if. Okay, and basically we have a one line. We got basically a one-liner here that we could say whether it's a fast car. And we'll run this. It says the car is a Ferrari. Okay, and this is the same way you do it with a regular if statement. Notice that this is a one-liner. It fits within this, and this you would have to. In this, you have about 4 or 5 lines doing the same thing. Okay, save and run. Okay, I said it is false this time, is fast as false this time, and it prints it out, and it does the same operation. In this case, you have 2 lines of code. This case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 6 lines of code. So save yourself a little bit of time. Okay, you have the notion of truthiness and falsiness. But basically, if something is null or blank, it is false. If it is not, it is true. And let's see if this works just for grins. Okay, I am now in the interpreted mode. We'll take this line by line. Okay, 0 is considered false. Okay, 30 is considered true. Now, but not only is 30 true, but also Negative 30 is considered true because it's not 0. Alright, I've got a string here. Oops, put it back. And it's considered true because it's not empty. I got an empty string here. And it's considered false. That's useful when you have some logic where you're trying to retrieve something out of a text file, say, and if it comes up empty, you don't want to do things, and that way you can have a conditional, you can have a boolean that says if false, which means if you didn't get anything back, do this. Alright, finally, we have the statement, do pigs fly? And Python thinks that is true. That pig fly because it is a non-blank string, and it's considered true. Whether the statement is true in English or not is totally beside the point. Okay, so we have gotten past truthiness and faultiness. Now I'm going to do exit, and I'm going to do it deliberately wrong, and it's going to say don't forget your parentheses. Okay, I didn't forget my parentheses. I'm back where I was. Alright, string manipulation, basically for double quotes versus single quotes is single quotes is a literal, double quotes you can have things like you have a / in, it will give you a return line. There's your source right there. And I'm going to skip past regular expressions. We'll have one specially on that. Okay, regular expressions will also cover how to write a text file there. Okay, functions are not really called procedures, and you have the link here for built-in functions, and you have a link in here for if you want to make your own. Okay, you define your function, and you have your input. Variable here. You have your logic here, and you notice you indent it. You do not use curly braces. That's a big difference with Python. Is things are indented. It's a little cleaner, but it can be also a little bit harder to read. Now you notice they have triple quotation marks. The reason they do that is, and this will show up in your documentation to tell you what this actually does. Okay. So, and the Fibonacci series is the sum of the series before it. So, okay, decision iteration statements in Python are called compound statements. Are called control structures in other languages. Here's your source, and you have your decision structure. You have an if statement. Okay, and a little compare and contrast. You have an if statement, you have an else, you have elif for if you have a series of if, and then you have an else of where if all else fails, do this. The while station is actually a loop statement, and it's you do this while this is true. The for is an iterator, and if you have a sequence such as a string, a tuple, that's a special complex construction in Python, or a list, it can go through and can do one thing for each of those. Okay, and here we have one where you just basically loop 10 times. Okay, we talked about the try statement briefly. The try statement, a try catch, allows you to try something that you may have an error on and handle the error. Okay, some miscellaneous stuff. You have with. It's a key, but it's a key that you can use to make sure files are closed because it automatically closes out. You have a try catch block. We've already done that. You have a match. Let's see if I remember what that is. Okay, a match statement is it's basically the case. It's basically what's called a do case in other languages. If you have a certain amount of finite outcomes, you can have it where it matches up to each of them. Okay, you have some complex data structures. You have all the way up, you have classes in Python, and we will talk about those in a subsequent class. Okay, you got some gotchas and quirks. Here's your go-to for that. And they call them gotchas like I do. And you could cruise through there, or for some reason it's hung up on me for some reason. Let's see. Do I have a hidden... Doesn't look like I have a... Okay, there it goes. It decided it started working. Okay, and it's misbehaving for some reason, but it shows you the common things. If you have a problem, you can't figure out what it's going on with it. You probably the first thing you need to do is go to the gotchas and see if you got one of the gotchas. Okay, I have been rambling on for over 20 minutes, which is long for one of these. I am going to stop here, and I'll pick it up with the next video.